Hello, this is Morel Benard with the continuing story of Wuthering Heights. Wuthering Heights. And please subscribe. Thank you. And please share. Thank you very much. Oh, wicked, wicked, gasped the elder. May the Lord deliver us from evil. Those were the last words. No reprobate. You are a castaway. Be off, or I'll hurt you seriously. I'll have you all modelled in wax and clay, and the first 2 passes the limits I fix shall. I'll not say what he shall be done to, but you'll see. Go, I'm looking at you. The little witch put a mock malignity into her beautiful eyes, and Joseph, trembling with sincere horror, hurried out, praying and ejaculating "wicked" as he went. I thought her conduct must be prompted by a species of dreary fun, and now that we were alone, I endeavoured to interest her in my distress. "Mrs. Heathcliff," I said earnestly, "you must excuse me for troubling you. I presume, because with that face, I'm sure you cannot help being good-hearted. Do point out some landmarks by which I may know my way home. I have no more idea how to get there than you would have to get to London." "Take the road you came," she answered, ensconcing herself in a chair with a candle and the long book open before her. "It is a brief advice, but as sound as I can give. Then, if you hear of me being discovered dead in a bog or a pit full of snow, your conscience won't whisper that it is partly your fault." "How so?" "I cannot escort you. They wouldn't let me go to the end of the garden wall." "You? I should be sorry to ask you to cross the threshold for my convenience on such a night," I cried. "I want you to tell me my way, not to show it, or else to persuade Mr. Heathcliff to give me a guide." "Who?" "There is myself, Earnshaw, Zillah, Joseph, and I. Which would you have? Are there no boys at the farm?" "No, those are all." "Then it follows that I'm compelled to stay." "That you may settle with your host. I have nothing to do with it." "I hope it will be a lesson to you to make no more rash journeys on these hills," cried Heathcliff's stern voice from the kitchen entrance. "As to staying here, I don't keep accommodations for visitors. You must share a bed with Harrington or Joseph if you do." "I can sleep on a chair in this room," I replied. No. A stranger is a stranger, be he rich or poor. It will not suit me to permit anyone the range of the place while I am off guard," said the unmannerly wretch. With this insult, my patience was at an end. I uttered an expression of disgust and pushed past him into the yard, running after Earnshaw in my haste. It was so dark that I could not see the means of exit, and as I wandered round I heard another specimen of their civil behaviour amongst each other. At first the young man appeared about to befriend me. "I'll go with him as far as the park," he said. "You'll go with him to hell," exclaimed his master, or whatever relation he bore. "And who is to look after the horses, eh?" "A man's life is of more consequence than one evening's neglect of the horses. Somebody must go," murmured Mrs. Heathcliff, more kindly than I expected. "Not at your command," retorted Harrington. "If you set store on him, you'd better be quiet." "Then I hope his ghost will haunt you, and I hope Mr. Heathcliff will never get another tenant till the Grange is a ruin," she answered sharply. Hearken, cursing on 'em," muttered Joseph, towards whom I had been staring. He sat within earshot, milking the cows by the light of a lantern, which I seized unceremoniously, and calling out that I would send it back on the morrow, rushed to the nearest postern. Mister, he's stealing the lantern, shouted the ancient, pursuing my retreat. Hey, Gashner, hey, dog, hey, wolf, hold him. On opening the little door, 2 hairy monsters flew at my throat, bearing me down and extinguishing the light, while a mingled guffaw from Heathcliff and Harrington put the cobstone on my rage and humiliation. Fortunately, the beast seemed more bent on stretching their paws and yawning, and flourishing their tails and devouring me alive. But they would suffer no resurrection, and I was forced to lie till their malignant masters pleased to deliver me. Then, hatless and trembling with wrath, I ordered the miscreants to let me out of their peril, to keep me 1 minute longer, with several incoherent threats of retaliation that in their indefinite depth of virulency smacked of King Lear. The vehemence of my agitation brought on a copious bleeding at the nose. And still Heathcliff laughed, and still I scolded. I don't know what would have concluded the scene had there not been one person at hand rather more rational than myself and more benevolent than my entertainer. This was Zillah, the stout housewife, who at length issued forth to inquire into the nature of the uproar. She thought that some of them had been laying violent hands on me, and not daring to attack her master, she turned her vocal artillery against the younger scoundrel. "Well, Mr. Earnshaw," she cried, "I wonder what she'll have against next. Are we going to murder folk on our very doorstones? I see this house will never do for me. Look at the poor lad, he's fair choking. Wish, you mustn't go on. Come in, and I'll cure that. There now, hold you tight." With these words, she suddenly splashed a pint of icy water down my neck and pulled me into the kitchen. Mr. Heathcliff followed, his accidental merriment expiring quickly in his habitual moroseness. I was sick exceedingly, and dizzy, and faint, and thus compelled perforce to accept lodgings under his roof. He told Zillah to give me a glass of brandy, and then passed on to the inner room, while she condoled with me on my sorry predicament, and having obeyed his orders thereby, I was somewhat revived, ushered me to bed. While leading the way upstairs, she recommended that I should hide the candle and not make a noise, for her master had an odd notion about the chamber she would put me in, and never let anybody lodge there willingly. I asked the reason. She did not know. She answered, she had only lived there a year or 2, and they had so many queer going on, she could not begin to be curious. Too stupefied to be curious myself, I fastened my door and glanced round for the bed. The whole furniture consisted of a chair, a clothes press, and a large oak case with squares cut out near the top resembling coach windows. Having approached this structure, I looked inside and perceived it to be a singular sort of old-fashioned couch, very conveniently designed to obviate the necessity for every member of the family having a room to himself. In fact, it formed a little closet, and the ledge of a window which it enclosed served as a table. I slid back the panel's sides, got in with my light, pulled them together again, and felt secure against the vigilance of Heathcliff and everyone else. The ledge, where I placed my candle, had a few mildewed books piled up in one corner, and it was covered with writing scratched on the paint. This writing, however, was nothing but a name repeated in all kinds of characters, large and small. Catherine Earnshaw, here and there, varied to Catherine Heathcliff, and then again to Catherine Linton. In vapid listlessness, I leant my head against the window and continued spelling over Catherine Earnshaw, Heathcliff, Linton, till my eyes closed. But they had not rested 5 minutes when a glare of white letters started from the dark. As vivid as spectres, the air swarmed with Catherines. And rousing myself to dispel the obtrusive name, I discovered my candle-wick reclining on one of the antique volumes, and perfuming the place with an odour of roasted calf skin. I snuffed it out, and very ill at ease under the influence of cold and lingering nausea, sat up and spread open the injured to me of my knees. It was a testament, in lean type, and smelling dreadfully musty. A fly leaf bore the inscription, Catherine Earnshaw, her book, and a date some quarter of a century back. I shut it, and took up another and another, till I had examined it all. Catherine's library was select, and its state of dilapidation proved it to have been well used, though not altogether for a legitimate purpose. Scarcely one chapter had escaped a pen and ink commentary, at least the appearance of one, covering every morsel of blank that the printer had left. Some were detached sentences. Other parts took the form of a regular diary, scrawled in an uniform, childish hand. At the top of an extra page, quite a treasure, probably when the first lighted on, I was greatly amused to behold an excellent caricature of my friend Joseph, rudely yet powerfully sketched. An immediate interest kindled within me for the unknown Catherine, and I began forthwith to decipher her faded hieroglyphics. An awful Sunday, commenced the paragraph beneath. I wish my father were back again. Hindley is a detestable substitute. His conduct to Heathcliff is atrocious. H and I are going to rebel. We took our initiatory step this evening. All day had been flooding with rain. We could not go to church. So Joseph must needs get up the congregation in the garret. And while Hindley and his wife basked downstairs before a comfortable fire, doing anything but reading their Bibles, I'll answer for it, Heathcliff, myself, and the unhappy ploughboy were commanded to take our prayer books and mount. We were arranged in a row on a sack of corn, groaning and shivering, and hoping that Joseph would shiver too, so that he might give us the short homily for his own sake. A vain idea. The service lasted precisely 3 hours, and yet my brother had the face to exclaim when he saw us descend it. What, done already? On Sunday evenings, we used to be permitted to play, if we did not make much noise. Now a mere titter is sufficient to send us into corners. You forget you have a master here, says the tyrant. I'll demolish the first who puts me out of temper. I insist on perfect sobriety and silence. Oh boy, was that you? Francis, darling, pull his hair as you go by. I heard him snap his fingers. Francis pulled his hair heartedly, and then went and seated herself on her husband's knee, and there they were, like two babies, kissing and talking nonsense by the hour. Foolish palaver that we should be ashamed of. We made ourselves as snug as our means allowed in the arch of the dresser. I just fastened our pinafores together and hung them up for a curtain when in come Joseph. On an errand from the stable, he tears down my handiwork boxes, my ears, and croaks. The master's no but just buried, and Sabbath not over, and you sound of the gospel till your lungs and your larking. Shame on you, sit ye down, our children. There's good books enough if you read 'em. Sit ye down, and think of your souls. Saying this, he compelled us to square our positions that we might receive from the far-off fire a dull ray to show us the text of the lumber he thrust upon us. I could not bear the employment. I took my dingy volume by the scroop and hurled it into the dog kennel, vowing I hated a good book. Heathcliff kicked his to the same place. Then there was a hubbub. "Master Hindley," shouted our chaplain, "Master, come hither. Miss Cathy's riven the back of the Salvation, and Heathcliff's paused his fit into that part of the Broadway to destruction. It's fair, flaysome, that he let 'em go on this gate. Hey, the old man would lace 'em properly, but he's gone." Hindley hurried up from his paradise on the hearth, and seizing one of us by the collar and the other by the arm, hurled both into the back kitchen, where Joseph asseverated old Nick would fetch us as sure as we were living, and so comforted, we each sought a separate nook to await his advent. I reached this book and a pot of ink from a shelf, and pushed the house door ajar to give me light. And I've got the time on with writing for 20 minutes. But my companion is impatient, and proposing that we should appropriate the dairy's woman's cloak, and have a scamper on the moors until it's shelter. A pleasant suggestion, and then, if the surly old man come in, he may believe his prophecy verified. We cannot be damper or colder in the rain than we are here. Oh, listening to the story of Wuthering Heights. Listening to the story of Wuthering Heights. Please join me. Join me for the next video of Wuthering Heights. And please subscribe. Please share. Join me for the next video. Morel Benard. Join me for the next video of Wuthering Heights. Okay.